Hey, it's Mike Hambright. Welcome back to the Flip Nerd VIP show. Today I have with me Mark Thomas, who's the CEO of Reesio, which is a transaction management software that is focused on the realtor and broker space. Some investors starting to use it as well. It's a really cool product. We're going to learn a lot more about it, learn a little bit more about the serial entrepreneurial lifestyle. And before we get started, though, let's take a moment to recognize our sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Mark, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it.
Great. So I know you've started up a number of products. They're not even all in the real estate space, right? You've started some things that are outside of that as well. So you're the startup guy. So, tell us a little bit about your current venture, Reesio. I know you've recently raised some money too, but tell us a little bit about the product, and then after that, we'll talk a little bit about kind of how you came up with the idea.
Sure. So Resio is essentially a transaction management platform that streamlines the entire buy and sell process for real estate agents, clients, and third parties. And what it does is it brings all the parties of a real estate transaction into one centralized deal room in the cloud, where everyone can then seamlessly and easily e-share documents, e-sign documents. We've integrated DocuSign directly into our product. They can manage workflow, tasks, timelines, compliance, communication, and so forth. And essentially what it does, it eliminates all of the paperwork and manual processes that go into buying or selling a home, and just streamlines everything. Makes it easier to understand where everything's at in the process, and of course saves all parties, time and money.
Yeah, it's an intensive process. We actually just moved our real estate, our office, basically, after 5.5 years at another location, and we had file cabinets full of files, each of which are probably, no joke, on average somewhere between 2 and 4 inches thick.
Yeah. And
it's one of those things where you don't know, can I throw these away, or do I just scan them all and leave them in the cloud somewhere? But there's no doubt that it's a cumbersome process. Talk a little bit about how it seems very intuitive and obvious to say that that's needed, but how did you decide to tackle that?
Sure. So I've been doing some real estate investing on and off for the past 10 years. And actually, the last transaction I went through about a little over 2 years ago was an REO that I purchased, foreclosure I purchased, and it was just one of the most painful out of all the transactions I've done. It was the most painful. And I actually talked to the real estate agent that I had been using at the time, and I'd use her for another deal. And we just got to talking, and we're like, there's got to be a better way than all this paperwork. I remember literally one contract or document where when I signed it and scanned and emailed it back to the bank, they said it wasn't legible. They couldn't read the scan, and I had to rescan it literally 3 times over 2 hours, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. So we decided, we came up with the idea of Reesio, automating the paperwork process and the buying and selling process for agents and clients, and we launched it November 2012, so about 16 months ago. And it's been going great since then.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things, I say this all the time, one of the challenges as a real estate investor, I know you have your primary focus is on agents, but I think there's a big opportunity for investors as well. And a lot of investors, quite frankly, are agents. So, But one of the challenges with this business that makes it hard to scale is every time I buy a house and every time I sell a house, I'm working with a new agent, or a different agent. I'm working with a different lender. I'm working with a different appraiser, a different inspector every single time. And it makes it challenging to scale because the 100th deal you've done is just as hard as the first.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this is an opportunity to kind of clean up that process.
Yeah, exactly. And we definitely have real estate investors who use our product as well. We're starting to see that grow. And exactly, if you have everyone from your transactions in one centralized place, and then you go in and do another transaction, it's really easy to add those same people to it, or you can go back and see who did you work with last time, and maybe you might want to use them again. So and everything is stored forever and ever, so you never have to worry about like paperwork being lost or wondering, oh, I forgot which home inspector did I use for that last transaction, or which one did I use 2 years ago. You can go back in and find that. So yes, it does centralize like not just all the paperwork process, but also all of the people that were involved in a transaction as well.
Okay. And we were talking a little bit before we started the show today about how folks in the real estate space, whether they're investors or agents or brokers, tend to be a laggard to technology. So there's just a ton of things that we're like 5 or 10 years behind other industries. And so how are you finding folks that are willing to adopt it, even if there's one person that's savvy and says, this is awesome, we need to use this, they still have to invite other parties to bring them in, and everybody has to use it in order for it to work, right? So talk a little bit about that challenge.
That is a great question. And surprisingly, real estate agents and brokers are a lot more tech savvy than maybe people might give them credit for. They're very open to technology. So actually, e-signatures have actually been used by brokers and agents for, I would say, pretty fluently for the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And so a product like ours is kind of just an extension of that. It's taking e-signatures and putting it on steroids with all the other stuff that we do.
Yeah.
Now, one kind of small challenge that you bring up, which is inviting the other parties into it, that definitely, is sometimes a challenge. Now, a lot of times listing agents are the ones who are driving the process. And I would say about 75% of the transactions that get created in our system are listing side transactions. And because they're driving the process and dictating kind of how things need to be done, if they let the buyer's agent know, hey, this is how we're doing things, generally the buyer's agent's willing to do that. Now, that being said, it is uber critical that the product be clean, designed well, simple to use, and easy to join and navigate through once people join. So we actually have a pretty high join rate. So once people are invited in the transaction, they join at a pretty good clip. And that's really because we feel that we focused on creating such a clean and simple experience that when people see it, they go, oh, this is kind of like using Facebook or Twitter, not some boring, clunky real estate software.
Yeah, that's cool. And so how about, are folks able to interact in smaller circles inside of a transaction? So for example, when we sell a house, obviously, folks generally have an inspection done and they kind of discuss what they're going to negotiate outside of me. They may come to me ultimately and say, this is what we want, but they have those discussions inside of themselves. In fact, I generally don't even want to see the inspection report until it looks like it's something that I might agree to, because I don't want to be disclosed something that I may have to redisclose later on or something like that. So
absolutely. We have very robust permission sharing when it comes to documents, tasks, activities, messaging. So you can customize exactly who you share documents with. You can customize exactly who you assign tasks to or ask people to get stuff done. You can send messages, of course, to specific people within a transaction. And you have full control over that visibility. So like, for example, if the agent and the home inspector want to share the home inspection and then they don't want to share it with someone else until later on, they can control that process. And then we also have what's called like a groups feature, which essentially separates like the buying side and the listing side, except for certain things that they would need to do together. So it's collaborative all in one, yet specific enough permission and sharing wise that not everybody gets to or has to see everything else that everyone else is doing.
Okay. And are you finding for a lot of folks, the gatekeeper to the agents, maybe the brokers, especially large national broker types, are you finding that they're receptive to a product like this, or are they trying to do stuff in-house, or they want to use what they have in-house? Or
yeah, actually brokers are widely acceptive of this kind of product. And the reason for that is the compliance piece. So we actually have a very robust compliance set of features within our product that allows the broker, because ultimately at the end of the day, the broker is on the hook for what their agents do, their documents, if they're in order, if they're signed correctly, everything like that, right? So the broker has a huge incentive to make sure that the agents are following the right process, are doing the documents correctly, and so forth. So what the brokers actually can do in our product, they can set up workflows that the agents have to follow. They have the ability to approve and not approve documents and tasks before they're ultimately checked off as completed. They're set in place for version control. So once the brokers have approve those documents. They can't be edited or deleted or changed after that. So this is a great tool actually for brokers to manage how their agents are conducting their transactions and making sure they're in compliance, so that ultimately the brokers don't end up being on the hook for something if the agent doesn't do it correctly.
Okay. So to roll this out, is that what you're trying to do, is get the brokers that can then use it for their agents? Or are you going directly in some instances to agents? Or
so we do both. We have a slightly heavier focus on going after brokers. But that being said, our customer and user base is actually split pretty evenly, about a third brokers, a third transaction coordinators, which manage transactions for agents and brokers, and then a third agents. I would say our user base is split pretty evenly across the board. What we generally find is that agents and transaction coordinators tend to find our product online as an individual, and they sign up themselves and they just get started. And even smaller brokerages of say 20 people and fewer do that as well. And then the larger brokerages of say 25 and more, that we generally have to kind of more quote unquote sell into, maybe even do some more formalized training and that sort of thing before everyone in the brokerage is on board and using it.
Yeah. Okay. So we said up front that you're a serial entrepreneur. You've started a number of different ventures. Obviously, this whole time we've been talking about Resio, but tell us a little bit about you, your background, and you as a serial entrepreneur, and some of the other projects you've done.
Sure. So Reesio is the fifth overall company I started. It's the third technology startup. I actually started my first business back in 2005, owned a recruiting agency for 3.5 years, successfully sold that in November of 2008. And a few months before that's actually when I started to get into tech. So I went to a startup weekend one summer of 2008, fell in love with tech, was like, this is what I want to be doing. Started a couple of startups. One of them is actually still being run by one of my old co-founders. And then I also, as I mentioned, kind of have a real estate venture on the side where I do real estate investing. That's still ongoing. So yeah, this is my third technology startup. And, it's interesting. So I've been doing tech for about 5.5 years. And I think what's really very true, as they say out there, it's really kind of the 10,000 hour rule where, if you're really putting in the time and the hours necessary to get a startup going, that's when you really can see kind of the fruits of your labor. Not to kind of belittle anybody, but very, very difficult to be successful in your first startup. You really have to put in generally time, and it's usually not until your second, third, fourth, fifth startup that entrepreneurs really start to see things successful. And so just as an example, this is the furthest along I've gotten, if you want to call it that, in any of the startups I've done. In terms of venture capital raise, in terms of number of users, in terms of scaling, traction, and that sort of thing. And I think, it really requires a lot of work and effort into it. And the more time and effort you put into it, the better things will be. And so, I'm starting to really see that with Reesio, which is great.
Yeah. And talk about the balance between, my guess from knowing what I know about you and knowing what I know about other people and myself is there's a balance between wanting to start something and see it through to some point and pursuing another idea you have in your head. So talk a little bit about, there's some folks that purely start things and they hand them off because they're bored already. They don't want to maintain it. They don't even really want to build it. They just want to start it. Right. But talk about, you personally, how you define yourself there.
Yeah, so definitely agree with that. There's different types of entrepreneurs. Some of them love to just kick off the product, do that for a year and a half, and then hand it off to the rest of their team or somebody else to scale it. And the reason for that is that they're probably more just purely product focused, which is what's required in that first year and a half. Whereas once you get past that point and then you need to start to scale, it becomes not just product focused, but also operational focused. And they just may not have the desire or the skill set to do the operation side of things. Me personally, I am a product person at heart. I have been a senior product manager, for example, at a company like Intuit before. I've definitely, been heavily involved in our product and in past companies' products that I've been involved in. But I also enjoy the operational side, and I definitely like to see things through to the end. So my personal take is that, I want to see the company all the way through until a successful exit. Now, the definition of a successful exit can be many different things. It can be an
Right.
acquisition. It can be an IPO. I love the direction that we're heading in with Resio. I think this can be a $1 billion idea. I would love to see this grow into something really big and see that through until the end. Yeah, it's definitely just a personal preference. I will say that if you have the patience and the operational chops to see things through till the end, I think the rewards can be greater, and you can have a bigger footprint on, or a bigger hand in what ultimately happens with the company.
Right.
But yes, I mean, it's completely your choice, and every entrepreneur is different. But, I'm definitely the kind of person I like to see things through to the end, until at least it has a successful exit.
Yeah. Yeah. And how about, I know the Reesio product is not specifically a CRM. I think you said you have some functionality coming up, but there's obviously been a huge proliferation with CRMs, a lot of general ones and not necessarily real estate focused, but a lot of real estate investors still use them because they've kind of, they'll find some general CRM that they can kind of bastardize and make work for them. So that tells you a couple things. One is there's obviously tremendous demand for CRM type products to help people get organized and manage their business. But two, nobody has cracked the code to. There's a reason why there's a ton of them out there. Nobody has created the perfect product, which I'm not sure if that's possible.
Right.
But talk a little bit about kind of all the CRMs that have popped up, and then how you are working to. I know you said you have a product coming up, but how that kind of fits into the Reesio space.
Sure. Well, I'll take the last part of your question first and talk about why there haven't been any dominant CRM players, especially in the real estate industry. In the non-real estate industry, you have Salesforce. I think they, have a dominant market share. But in the real estate space specifically, I think the reason why you don't see a dominant player, and this is actually one of the reasons why we're focusing on becoming a one-stop shop, is the thing that we hear time and time again, especially from brokers and agents, but even real estate investors, is that they want more than just CRM. They want a one-stop shop where they can do everything. They want the ability to manage documents. They want the ability to generate leads. They want the ability to manage those leads through CRM. They want the ability to, manage like escrow and title and everything. And so, this goes back to what I said earlier, where, maybe the thought or the initial kind of assumption is that brokers and agents and investors might not be that tech savvy. Well, the reality is they are, and they actually want a lot. They want a robust, complete feature set that does everything. And I think part of the problem with just CRM is that it's just CRM. It doesn't do everything. It doesn't do more than just contact management. So, for example, with our platform, we obviously have kind of complete one-stop shop. We do not just transaction management, which includes e-signatures, but we also do lead gen. We also manage the offers process, so you can make, accept, decline, and counter offers through our system. We're going to be integrating CRM in the next couple of months, and I'll talk about which ones are out there in a moment here. But what that goal is again making it a one-stop shop, and that is the ticket to, in my opinion, wide adoption. And just based on hearing our customers talk, that's the most critical part is having everything. Specific, and so I don't want to say CRM. I don't want to narrow it down and say CRM is just a feature, because it's not. There are whole companies that are focused on CRM, and rightfully so, because there's a lot that entails into it. But I think that the user base ends up at the end of the day wanting a lot more than just CRM. In terms of which CRMs are great, so we hear nothing but great things about Contactually. So we were actually part of an accelerator called 500 Startups last year, and actually Contactually was part of 500 Startups as well in the prior batch that we were in. A lot of real estate professionals are using Contactually, and they love it. And they have a pretty seamless API that we can integrate, which we're probably going to do in the next few months. Some other more legacy products are Top Producer, which is owned by Move Inc. So that's another pretty widely used one. There's other ones up there like Follow Up Boss, although they more focus on kind of responding to leads and stuff. So you don't have a ton of predominant, I guess, or dominant players in the market, but I think that's going to start to change, and especially as these CRMs offer the ability to integrate with other kind of more platform type products. I think you'll see some of them start to grow and differentiate themselves.
Yeah. And I know you said earlier on that you have an alliance, or you integrate with DocuSign.
Correct.
And you just, from what you just said with CRMs too, at what point as an entrepreneur that's building a product, at what point do you decide to build it yourself versus partner with other people that have something carved out there? I think that's another problem that a lot of CRMs have, is they want to stay proprietary, or they think they can do it better than somebody else, but obviously it makes them less nimble as well. So
sure. Well, it's so for us, build versus partner. For the most part, 95% of the things we do, we build. So yes, we want it to be proprietary. We want to own it. We want to control the user experience. That's the biggest reason why we build it out. It's not even so much we don't want to spend the time on it if it's something we partner with. It's that we want to control the user experience. In the case of DocuSign, so DocuSign, as e-signatures become more widely adopted, DocuSign is just the dominant player in the marketplace. And real estate agents and brokers and even investors, they already have DocuSign accounts. So we don't need to convince them to try this other e-signature platform or to use our e-signatures. They just authenticate their DocuSign account in about 10 seconds right in our system. Yeah. And from there it's seamless and they never have to worry about it again. So it's a super slick integration and it plays off what they already have. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. Same thing with CRM. So as I mentioned before, CRM can be a company in and of itself. So if we were to go down the route of building out our own CRM, and we'd have to probably hire 2 or 3 engineers and product people that were experts on CRM just to build it out ourselves. Whereas when you look at a product like Contactually, which has built a great API that we can integrate in maybe 3 or 4 weeks, that cuts down on development time. Agents are already using the product, so they're already familiar with it and can link it to everything else in our product. So, we do, definitely bias our product towards building because that's what we prefer in terms of controlling the experience. But when we know that other products out there are dominant in their field and they have great user experiences, we'll integrate them. If a product doesn't have a great user experience, we won't integrate it. It's not happening. So It just really depends on the feature set involved.
Yeah. And how about with your platform? I assume you have full, mobile functionality and.
We're focused. So we've primarily focused on the tablet so far. We don't have a phone app, and the reason for that is that with a product like ours, with being it so document heavy, most people aren't going to do document related stuff on their phone, but they will do it on the tablet, right?
You're right.
So we're very we're very user friendly on the tablet. We have a great tablet product. We probably will come out with a phone app later this year for more of the task related things, timeline, compliance stuff, but not so much the documents because it's just too small of a screen and it's too difficult to manage documents on a phone.
Right. Awesome. Well, aside from you guys taking over the world, where do you see technology in the real estate space specifically? Where do you see that going over the next, let's say, 2 years?
Yeah, so there's definitely some press out there about how we kind of go about business. So, for example, like Resio actually offers this product for free, and one of the reasons that we do that is that we're actually a data play as well. So we actually create public marketing pages for agents from their transaction data, and the reason why we do that is we actually think that the number one problem in the real estate industry right now is a lack of accurate data that's out there. That is actually the biggest issue, and that's where everything is headed. Everything is heading in real estate towards building out accurate data for consumers, for investors, giving them access to this data seamlessly and easily and in real time. And then from there, kind of closing the loop and allowing people to be part of the whole transaction process and so forth. But the bottom line is that data is actually the biggest problem right now in real estate. For example, you go search for properties on Zillow and Trulia, over 50% of what you find on those websites will be completely inaccurate. And so what we're doing, for example, with Reesio, is we're creating a much more accurate data set, and we know it's more accurate because it's coming directly from the agents and it's being updated in real time throughout their transactions. So I see more and more startups and more technology products out there tackling the data aspect within real estate in the next 3 to 5 years, because that's the biggest pain point for agents and consumers alike.
And you're talking about specifically what data, like sales prices?
Everything. So status of a property. So one of the biggest things that Zillow and Truly miss are the status of a property. So for example, we know when a property goes into contract because the contract gets signed right in our system, right?
Right.
So we know the moment it goes from, say, active to active contingent or pending, or from pending to sold, whereas there'll be a 2, 3, 4, even 8 or 12 week lag time on Zillow and Trulia with regards to that. Same thing when a property gets listed. So we know that before Zillow and Trulia do a lot of the time. So status of a property is the biggest one. Then, yes, the price is the second biggest. And then sometimes property details will change. Like there'll be additions to a property that won't be available in other data sources. So in that order, those are the 3 biggest.
And what do you do about some states like Texas, for example, and there's a lot of other states that are non-disclosure states. So how do you handle what folks in areas where people don't want that knowledge known?
Well, so we can still show that it's sold and the sold
Yeah.
date. We just can't show the sold price.
Okay.
So there's only 7 states that are non-disclosure states, so it's
Okay.
not that big of a deal. 43 states are disclosure states, so it's fine.
But Texas is half of the United States. So. If you ask a Texan,
no, California is right.
Yeah, that's the other half.
So, but we can still show like when a property changes status. Like we can
Right.
still show when it changes from active to active contingent, active contingent to pending to sold. So we can still show that. Really, the biggest thing that we can't show in those non-disclosure states is the sold price.
Yeah.
So that's not as big of a deal. Really knowing when the status changes, that's bigger. Or knowing if the price changes during the process.
Yeah.
And yeah, other details as well. So it's really not that big of a deal for non-disclosure states.
Yep. Yep. Cool. So where do you think, in terms, it sounds like that the data side of that is something I hadn't even considered until you said it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How about other, just general technology? Do you think that there will be, at some point there's going to be a washout of people that don't have as robust a products, or folks start to partner with others and do a lot more collaboration? I mean, in terms of, let's just say in terms of the users, in terms of agents, real estate investors,
Mm-hmm.
brokers, title companies, things like that, where do you see technology heading over the next couple of years?
Well, so in general,
Yeah.
over 90% of startups fail, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for it. A couple of which you just gave. Their products are not as useful. They can't get widespread adoption. Maybe they can't close additional funding. Who knows what, right? So there's always, just in general, whether it's real estate tech or social media tech, or whatever it might be, there's always a narrowing down of the players that are out there.
Yeah.
Just by sheer attrition. And so those companies sometimes get acquired, they get acqui-hired, they merge, they just go out of business, whatever. So I don't think the ratio in real estate tech is going to be any more or less than what it is general in tech. I mean, just because you generally get the same type of people starting real estate tech that you do other kinds of tech. And so you're always going to have winners, you're going to have losers. Unfortunately, the reality is that most of them are going to end up losing. But what's interesting about real estate tech is because this is such a hot time, and because real estate tech is actually pretty hot right now, because the mentality of brokers and agents and investors has shifted to accepting technology, I actually think that more companies, percentage-wise, will be successful than maybe some other areas or industries that are more mature, like social networking, right? I mean, if you don't have 1 million users, you're bumming. You're not going to go anywhere. Maybe you get snatched up by Facebook or Twitter, but probably not. So I think there will be more successful exits for real estate tech companies in the next 3 to 5 years, percentage-wise. It's still going to be low. It's still going to be maybe 20 or maybe 25% instead of 10%. Mm-hmm. But I think it will beat the kind of tech industry average in general of maybe 10% of startups having a successful exit.
Yeah, yeah. And this is an industry that's, like I said, as a laggard, that's part of the opportunity, right? Is that it's time to get caught up with everything else. So, yeah.
Everything is catching up compared to the industries that are, more mature, like, social media or online recruiting or those
Right.
kinds of things that have tons and tons of players, very, very saturated. There's still a lot to be, built in real estate tech.
Right, right. So, Mark, if folks want to find out about Reesio or maybe take it for a test drive, what do they do?
Yeah, so it's really easy. Just go to Reesio.com. That's REES as in Sam, IO.com. We make it, again, very clean and simple to get started. You can just enter in your name, email, and a password on the homepage and get started for free. And it walks you through how to set up your account and to create a transaction. So really kind of, no training required, although, of course, we do have a robust set of training videos and a library of training videos. We do webinars twice a week. And something that no one else does is we provide 24/7 chat support. And it's, not outsourced to another country. It's all domestic. It's all here in house. And so that's really, I can't understate that enough, or overstate that enough, that it's so critical to be there for your customers when they need it. So having that 24/7 chat support when they get stuck on something, we offer. And then, yes, I also have a tech blog on Quora. It's called The Entrepreneurial Life. So you can just go to Quora.com and search for Entrepreneurial Life. Okay. And talk about different tech topics. And kind of entrepreneurial type topics on there.
Awesome, awesome. We'll add links to all that stuff down below the video here so folks can easily find you. So awesome. Well, I appreciate your insights and your time and wish you all the best with Reesio. It sounds like you got a great product and it just all comes down to executing well, so.
You got it. Ideas
Yeah.
don't mean anything. It's all about execution.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we wish you all the best, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too.
Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.